Hey guys, welcome to Conspiracy Theory Sunday, where we dissect Reddit stories for the truth. This story comes from Katha K. This is a long one, and a strange one, but buckle in, it's a wild ride. Strange woman harassed me at home, demanding to see someone that never lived here. I'm a woman in my 30s who lives alone in a small house at the head of a quiet cul-de-sac in the UK. The street is a maze of roads, away from the main road, which means that other than delivery guys and the occasional salesperson, you very rarely see anyone you don't recognise. I don't exactly know all my neighbours, but I know what they look like and I know where they live, and I can recognise their cars. This weirdness happened over the space of a few months, several years back. I work from home, so I'm usually in, and sometimes I don't have a lot to do. The first day was one of those lazy days. It was about 4 PM, I'm sitting on the sofa watching some daft shit about alien cover-ups, and someone knocks on the door. I have surveillance cameras hidden in the wooden canopy above the front door, so I checked to see who it was because I wasn't expecting any deliveries, and I couldn't be bothered to deal with a salesperson. It was a woman who looked to be late 40s, early 50s, very smartly dressed, like really expensive clothes and jewellery, stuff I could never afford. Most people around here generally couldn't afford it either. We're not a very affluent area, and this lady stuck out like a sore thumb. She looked flustered and agitated, glancing towards the back garden before trying to look through the tiny frosted window on the front door. I noticed that she was carrying a dog's lead, but I couldn't see a dog. As it happens, at the far side of my back garden there are two hedges. There's the hedge that I own, within my own property boundaries, and there's a second hedge, outside my boundary that's council owned, along a small grass lane where people walk dogs. I know for a fact that there's a hole in the council owned hedge, which I've reported to them at least a dozen times over the past decade, and they've done square root of sod all about it. Because of my hedge, I can't reach it to do anything about it myself. Consequently, when I saw the dog's lead, I thought, shit, I bet her dog's gone through the hole. If it's a big dog, it's not getting into my garden, but if it's a small dog, it might have been able to work its way through. I've always got some cooked meat, so I figured I might be able to lure it out. I'm a dog lover, of course. I want to help this woman if I can. When I was a kid, my own dog went missing for a few weeks. I thought I was never going to get him back. I was heartbroken for those weeks, but fortunately, we did get him back. And ever since then, I've been extremely sensitive to pets in need. I open the door, and this woman gives me the weirdest look, like she was expecting someone completely different to answer the door, and that I shouldn't be there. To be fair to her, my mother used to live here too, so I didn't think much of that weird look to begin with. Maybe she was expecting my mum. I say, hello, and she just stares at me for the longest 30 seconds, before she tries to look past me and asks to see Margaret. I don't know what it is about other people's mistakes, but whenever someone has the wrong number, I always end up apologising as if it's my fault. So that's what I did. I apologised and told her there was no Margaret at this address. Again, she gives me that look, only this time there's anger behind it. Yes, there is, she insists. It occurs to me at this point that I have a relative called Margaret, but she lives about 60 miles away and I haven't seen her in years. Nonetheless, just in case she's got her dresses muddled, I ask, are you looking for Margaret, surname? But she just hisses at me. You know exactly who I'm looking for. What have you done with her? I'm absolutely lost at this point. I've lived here for 20 years and I know the name of the previous owner, so I know she's not asking for them. I also know the names of the neighbours and the names of the people who have lived on the street since I've been here and since moved. None of them are called Margaret. So all I can do is tell her she's got the wrong address. No, this is OP's address. You're lying. That was a tad alarming. She's at the right address. She's not knocked on the wrong door. However, she clearly thinks I've done something to someone who, to the best of my knowledge, has never lived here. I don't know how long the previous owner had this house, but we must be talking at least 30 years since anyone called Margaret might have lived here. At this point, I notice that she's subtly wrapped her dog lead around her now clenched fist, like she's planning on using it as a weapon. In my youth, I did plenty of self-defense training, so I'm not exactly scared of her as such, but I'm obviously getting a bit concerned about the situation that's brewing. I don't particularly wish to get involved in a brawl on my doorstep with a complete stranger. I'm torn between shutting the door in her face or trying to de-escalate the situation. In the end, I close the door a little so she's got less to aim at, and I tell her, look, I don't know who you're looking for, but if you think something's happened to your friend, maybe we should just call the police and let them sort it out. Sure enough, the woman slams her fist with the lead wrapped around it into my door. I later discovered that she'd struck the door hard enough to crack the frosted glass in the middle of it. She's bleeding from doing it. It must have hurt, but she doesn't flinch or show any sign of pain. What the hell? Any confidence I had in my self-defense classes started to waver here, because I'm not used to people who don't feel pain. All I can think now is that she's on something and having a really bad trip. At this point, I put on my scariest voice and I tell her to get the fuck back. I let her know that I'm calling the police, and if she's still here when they get here, she can deal with them because I'm not dealing with her anymore. She tries to stop me from closing the door, but I shove her back and I manage to get it closed and locked. I make a point to stand next to the door while I'm calling 999 so she can hear me. While I'm waiting for the police to turn up, I watch her on the surveillance feed. She moves out of shot multiple times, presumably to check the back of the house, and I hear her calling out for Margaret. A few minutes before the police finally turn up, I see her kick over my willy bins in a rage. But then, the most chilling thing happens. She walks back to the front door and literally stares directly into my camera. That camera is pretty well hidden. I'm not saying nobody could spot it, but most people would only know it was there if they'd been looking for it. Most people aren't looking for cameras, right? She knew it was there. She must have eyeballed it previously. When? I don't know. Later, I reviewed all the footage I had from that day, and she never made eye contact with it once. She never even looked in that direction. I only have about a week's worth of footage before the oldest footage is written over. I checked everything I had, and she was only on camera that day. All I can think is that she's been here more than a week prior. While she's staring right into it, she flips me the finger and then makes a throat-cutting gesture before walking off. I head to the window to watch her leave, and she's walking like she doesn't have a care in the world. She doesn't even look back, she just wanders away. The police finally show up. Good job I wasn't being murdered. And they take a statement. I give them a copy of the surveillance footage, and that's it. I call a couple times to follow up, but nothing. Nobody ever called me about it. I won't lie, this shit me up for a few weeks. I moved the knife block closer to the door, though out of sight of any windows. I started staying up really late and not getting much sleep, which really didn't help. On some nights, I was so tired that I started experiencing audio hallucinations. I'd hear people who weren't there talking, and because this woman was the cause of all my stress, I heard her name and the name Margaret most of all. Every time I heard the gate open, it put me on edge. I'd review the surveillance footage every day. Eventually, as the weeks passed and I hadn't heard anything else, I started to regain some of my comfort and just put it down as a weird experience. It didn't last. About 4, maybe 5 weeks after the first encounter, she came back. It was just after midnight. I was in the living room mucking around on my phone with the TV on low volume for some background noise. I heard a car door slam, and I peeked out the front window. A dark-coloured car was parked at the end of my driveway. I couldn't see what make or model it was, but it looked like some sort of estate car. I think Americans call them station wagons, right? I didn't see anyone moving about, but after a minute or two, the front gate swung open with its metallic groaning, and there was a knock on the door. Even when I'm not involved in a blood feud over imaginary Margarets, I'm not going to answer the door at that time. I checked the surveillance camera. Its night vision mode is pretty shitty, but I'm positive it's that woman again. I can even see what I think is the dog lead, and of course, she knows I'm watching her, because she looks at the camera again. And I tell you, when someone is already giving you the heebie-jeebies, the way night vision makes people's eyes look like soulless black voids doesn't do much to make you feel better. Suddenly, she yells out, Shut that fucking racket off and come out here, now! I had my TV on, but as I mentioned, it was on very low volume. There's no way she could hear it from outside the front door. I couldn't even hear it if I walked out into the hallway. I'm convinced at this point that she's mentally unwell, so I call the police again. I want them to stay on the line, but they just tell me that someone will be over soon and to call them back immediately if things escalate. So I'm waiting, watching, and just hoping she doesn't start trying to smash the window or something. She kicks over my wheelie bins again. I don't know what she's got against them. And yells something else out, which I couldn't quite make out, but whatever it was enough for one of the neighbours to come out and investigate themselves. I watched the neighbour talking with her for a minute. She's remonstrating about something, wagging her finger towards my front door, but my neighbour is eventually able to get her to leave. He even sticks around for a bit to make sure she's gone. Sadly, that also meant she'd gone before the police turned up again, and they made me feel like I was a bother to them. Another statement, handing over more security footage, more nothing. I caught up with the neighbour the next day, and he apologised because it didn't occur to him to make a note of the registration plate. But he told me that she'd said much the same thing she'd said to me previously. That she wanted to know where Margaret was, and what I'd done with her. I'm grasping for answers at this point. Even if she's mentally unwell, the fact that she's sticking to this Margaret story and has the right address, it makes me think there's something more to this than someone having a mental breakdown. Then it clicks. Is Margaret her dog? Does she think that I've stolen her dog? Did she have a dog go through the hole in the back? Does she think I've hurt her dog? Is this what this is all about? It'd be another few weeks before she came back. This time at 3 a.m, I'm woken by knocking at the door. A few minutes later, I hear tapping on the bedroom window. I know it's her. I can hear her saying things, but I can't really make them out because they're too muffled through the windows. It's like she didn't want to get the neighbour out again, so she's trying to keep it quiet. I jump out of bed and put clothes on as quickly as I can. I try and follow her as best as I can as she moves around the outside of the house, from room to room, knocking, tapping and muttering. I think I hear a few coherent words, like noise and racket, and I'm pretty sure she called me a bitch, but maybe I was imagining that. I can't check the surveillance footage this time because she spray painted the damn lens. Not that it'd matter much this time. She's not lingering by the door. I think about calling the police again, but it's proven to be a waste of time so far, and I get the feeling that if I call them out a third time and she's gone, then they're just going to start accusing me of wasting their time, even though I do have the evidence. They've not exactly been that helpful so far. In the end, I wait by the front door and listen for her. Eventually, she knocks again, and I call out, "Is Margaret your dog?" Dead silence. Nothing. I can't see anything through the frosted glass because it's too dark. I have no idea where she is, and I don't want to turn on the outside lights. I don't even know why. She knows I'm in the house because I've called out to her, but I still don't want to draw any attention to myself. I end up standing there for who knows how long, at least an hour, probably more because the sun starts coming up. My heart is going a mile a minute pretty much the whole time. Once it's bright enough, I start checking through the windows to see if I can see her. Nope, nothing. I tentatively open the front door and look outside. Still can't see her. I grab something to arm myself with just in case. Can't remember what now. And I check all around my house and the back garden. She's not there. As I'm heading back to the front door, I spot the oddest thing. The gate's closed. That gate is physically attached to the side of my house, and when it opens and closes, it makes a fair bit of noise. You'd definitely hear it if someone opened or closed it when you were standing next to the front door, but it's closed. So what does that mean? Did she jump it somehow? Is it possible? I guess, but I wouldn't want to try it. Anyway, I open the gate and head out to the end of the driveway. I look around and there's no sign of anyone. I turn back to the house and see she's spray painted "liar" on the front of my house and left a dog lead on the floor beneath it. That was, thankfully, the last time I ever heard from or saw this woman. but I think she still comes by sometimes. Ever since all this happened, I get these creeped out feelings occasionally at night, and I check out the window. I don't know if I'm imagining it or not, but now and again, I swear I can see a dark-coloured estate car out on the street. Not parked to the end of my driveway these days, but I just can't shake the feeling that she's in there, watching my house. Perhaps she's looking for her dog, and she keeps thinking that she'll see me with it. Unless she's not right in the head, I doubt she'd expect to see you out and about with a dog in the middle of the night. Maybe she really does have mental issues. No rational person behaves like this. If OP didn't have the camera footage and hadn't shown it to the police, I might think that she was the one imagining things. I read a similar story where the OP thought their partner was going crazy. They even filmed them on their phone, doing the things that they thought they saw. But later, they found out they were the one having mental issues, and the phone footage was just a blurry mess of nothing. All I know is, if I was in OP's shoes, I'd move. Remember, I post new content every day, so subscribe for more juicy tea.